In a quiet town nestled between rolling hills, there stood an enormous mansion that seemed almost like a castle. Its owner, Alexander Hartwell, was no ordinary man. He was a billionaire who had built his empire from scratch. Born into poverty, he worked tirelessly to climb the ladder of success, creating cutting-edge technology that changed industries worldwide. But despite his achievements, something was missing in his life. His mansion, though luxurious, felt empty. The long hallways echoed with silence, and the grand dining table was always set for one. Alexander wasn't just lonely. He carried a deep ache inside him. As a child, he'd grown up feeling invisible, shuffled between relatives who didn't want him. He promised himself that once he made it big, he'd fill his life with meaning. Yet here he was, surrounded by wealth but disconnected from people. Work consumed most of his days, leaving little room for personal relationships. Friends drifted away over time, tired of competing with his endless schedule. Family. That concept felt foreign to him now. One evening, as rain pattered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of his study, Alexander scrolled through social media aimlessly. A headline caught his eye: "The Forgotten Children. Why so many black kids remain in foster care." Curious, he clicked on the article. What he read shook him to his core. It spoke about how countless black children were labeled unadoptable because of deeply ingrained biases. These kids waited years, sometimes decades, for families that never came. Some aged out of the system entirely, left to navigate adulthood without support or guidance. Alexander leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. Memories of his own childhood flooded back. The nights spent alone, the hunger, the longing for someone to care. He thought about those kids, sitting in foster homes, wondering if anyone would ever choose them. Something stirred within him, a mix of anger, sadness, and determination. For so long, he had focused on building his company, chasing accolades, and amassing wealth. But what good was all of this if he couldn't use it to make a difference? By midnight, Alexander had made up his mind. He wouldn't just adopt one child, he would take in siblings, keeping them together. He wanted to give them more than just a roof over their heads. He wanted to offer them love, stability, and opportunities they might not have otherwise. The idea terrified him. After all, he knew nothing about parenting. How could someone like him, who struggled to connect with adults, possibly raise children? But fear didn't stop him. Deep down, he believed this was his chance to rewrite not only their stories, but also his own. The next morning, Alexander contacted a local adoption agency. When asked why he wanted to adopt multiple children, especially older ones often considered harder to place, he simply said, "Because they deserve a chance too." Little did he know, this decision would set off a chain of events that would touch millions of lives, including his own. Alexander's journey into fatherhood began the moment he stepped into the adoption agency. The social worker, Ms. Thompson, greeted him with a warm smile, but also a hint of skepticism. She had seen wealthy individuals come in before, eager to adopt babies or toddlers, only to back out when faced with the reality of raising children who needed extra care. But Alexander was different. He didn't ask for perfect kids. He asked for siblings, a group that had been overlooked by everyone else. After weeks of meetings, background checks, and home visits, Alexander finally met the four siblings: Malik, Nia, Jalen, and Amara. They walked into the meeting room cautiously, their eyes darting around as if expecting disappointment yet again. Malik, the eldest, stood tall, shielding his younger siblings with his presence. Nia clutched a tattered book to her chest, while Jalen fidgeted nervously with the hem of his shirt. Little Amara held tightly onto Nia's hand, peeking shyly at Alexander from behind her sister. Ms. Thompson introduced them, explaining how they'd been in foster care for years after being removed from an unstable home. Their parents were absent, either unable or unwilling to provide for them. Over time, the siblings became each other's anchors, sticking together through every move, every rejection. "They're strong," Miss Thompson told Alexander quietly. But they've built walls. Breaking through will take patience. Alexander nodded, though he felt a pang of nervousness. He knelt down to Amara's level, offering a soft smile. "Hi there," he said gently. "I'm Alex." Amara blinked at him, but didn't respond. Malik crossed his arms, studying Alexander with narrowed eyes. "You sure about this?" he asked bluntly. "We're not exactly what people are looking for." His words struck a chord. Alexander remembered the article that had inspired him, the one detailing how black children often remained in the system longer than others. He looked Malik straight in the eye and replied, "I'm sure. And I think you're exactly what I'm looking for." The decision was made quickly after that. Within a month, the Hartwell mansion transformed into a bustling household. The once silent halls echoed with laughter, arguments, and the pitter-patter of small feet. Alexander hired caregivers, tutors, and therapists to help the kids adjust. He even redecorated parts of the house to make it feel more welcoming, adding colorful rugs, cozy furniture, and shelves filled with books and toys. But blending 4 lives with his own wasn't easy. Malik tested boundaries constantly, questioning Alexander's motives at every turn. Was he doing this for publicity? Did he really understand what it meant to be black in a world full of prejudice? Mia retreated into herself, burying her nose in books instead of engaging with her new surroundings. Jalen acted out, throwing tantrums and breaking things when frustration bubbled over. And Amara clung to her siblings like glue, hesitant to interact with anyone outside their tight-knit circle. Despite the challenges, Alexander refused to give up. Every morning, he joined them for breakfast, asking about their day ahead. He attended parent-teacher conferences, cheering on Jalen during basketball practice, and stayed up late helping Nia with her essays. When Malik snapped at him during dinner one night, accusing him of treating them like charity cases, Alexander listened without interrupting. Then he said, "You're right. I can't erase your past. But I can promise you this, I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to be." Slowly, cracks began to form in the walls they'd built. Amara started giggling during playtime, her tiny voice filling the air like music. Jalen smiled for the first time when Alexander taught him how to shoot hoops in the backyard. Nia surprised everyone by reading aloud from her favorite novel one evening, her voice steady and confident. And Malik. One day, he muttered a reluctant thanks after Alexander fixed his bike, an act so small yet so meaningful. Though the road ahead was uncertain, these moments gave Alexander hope. For the first time in years, his mansion didn't feel empty. Instead, it buzzed with life and the promise of something greater than wealth. Family. Building trust with the Hartwell siblings wasn't something that happened overnight. It was a slow, often frustrating process, filled with small victories and setbacks. Alexander quickly realized that love alone wouldn't erase years of pain and uncertainty. These children had learned to survive by keeping people at arm's length, and breaking through those barriers required patience, consistency, and genuine effort. Malik, the eldest, remained the toughest nut to crack. At 15, he carried the weight of responsibility for his younger siblings, determined to protect them from further heartache. He questioned Alexander's intentions constantly, testing him in ways both subtle and obvious. One evening, during dinner, Malik pushed back against one of Alexander's suggestions about setting up tutoring sessions. "Why do you care so much?" Malik snapped. "You think hiring some fancy teacher is gonna fix everything." Alexander paused, setting down his fork. Instead of reacting defensively, he took a deep breath and replied, "I don't expect anything to fix everything, Malik. I just want to give you tools to succeed, whatever that looks like for you." His calm response surprised Malik, who expected anger or dismissal. Over time, these moments of restraint began to chip away at Malik's defenses. When Alexander showed up to watch Malik tinker with old electronics in the garage, asking questions and showing interest in his passion for engineering, Malik started to see him differently, not as a stranger, but as someone willing to meet him halfway. Nia, on the other hand, dealt with her emotions differently. She buried herself in books, using stories as a way to escape reality. Her room became a sanctuary lined with novels, journals, and sketches she drew during quiet moments. Alexander noticed how much comfort she found in writing and encouraged her to explore it further. He bought her a laptop and signed her up for creative writing workshops. At first, Nia resisted, unsure if she could trust his intentions. But when he started reading her favorite books alongside her, discussing characters and plots over cups of hot chocolate, she began to open up. Writing became more than an escape. It became a bridge between them. Jelen's struggles were harder to navigate. The 9-year-old had a fiery temper, often lashing out when things didn't go his way. Broken vases and slammed doors became part of daily life in the mansion. Rather than punishing him, Alexander tried to understand the root of Jelen's anger. He enrolled him in sports activities, hoping physical exertion would help channel his energy. Basketball became Jelen's outlet, and soon, Alexander joined him on the court, teaching him dribbling techniques and cheering loudly whenever he made a basket. Those afternoons spent playing together turned into bonding sessions where laughter replaced frustration. Little Amara, sweet and shy, clung to her siblings like glue. She rarely spoke to Alexander directly, preferring to communicate through nods or whispers to Nia. To win her over, Alexander focused on creating safe spaces for her to express herself. He set up a music corner in the living room, complete with a keyboard and colorful instruments. One day, while the others were busy elsewhere, Amara tentatively approached the piano. Alexander sat beside her, gently guiding her fingers over the keys. By the end of the session, they were laughing as they played simple tunes together. Music became their special connection, a language neither needed words to understand. These small breakthroughs added up over time. Trust grew inch by inch, built on shared experiences and mutual respect. Alexander celebrated every milestone, no matter how minor it seemed. A smile from Amara, a high five from Jelen, a thoughtful comment from Nia, or even Malik calling him Alex instead of Mr. Hartwell. Each moment felt monumental. Through it all, Alexander reminded himself why he'd chosen this path. These children weren't projects or charity cases. They were individuals with dreams, fears, and untapped potential. And though the journey was far from over, the Hartwell home slowly transformed into a place where walls crumbled, laughter echoed, and hearts began to heal. As the months turned into years, the Hartwell household became a vibrant tapestry of individual passions and shared growth. Each child began to discover their unique talents, encouraged by Alexander's unwavering support. What started as tentative steps toward trust blossomed into confidence, creativity, and purpose, a transformation that amazed everyone who witnessed it. Malik was the first to truly shine. His love for taking things apart and putting them back together had always been evident, but now he had access to tools, resources, and guidance that fueled his curiosity. Alexander converted part of the garage into a workshop, filling it with gadgets, wires, and blueprints. Malik spent hours there, tinkering with old appliances and building prototypes. One day, while working on a solar-powered phone charger, he looked up at Alexander and said, "This feels like magic." Alexander smiled, replying, "It's not magic, Malik. It's you figuring out how the world works and making it better." Nia found her voice in the written word. With Alexander's encouragement, she joined writing competitions and attended storytelling workshops. Her essays and poems captured raw emotions, painting vivid pictures of resilience and hope. She wrote about her childhood, her fears, and her dreams, pouring her heart onto paper. When she won second place in a national youth writing contest, Alexander framed her certificate and hung it proudly in the living room. "You're telling stories the world needs to hear," he told her. For the first time, Nia believed him. Jelen's journey unfolded on the basketball court. At first, sports were just a way to burn off steam, But soon they became something more. Under Alexander's watchful eye, Jalen developed discipline and focus. He practiced tirelessly, honing his skills until he could dribble past anyone. His teammates admired his determination, and coaches praised his teamwork. During one particularly tough game, when Jalen missed several shots in a row, Alexander called out from the sidelines, "Keep your head up. You've got this." Those words stuck with Jalen, reminding him that failure wasn't the end. It was part of the process. Amara's gift emerged through music. The piano Alexander had set up in the living room became her sanctuary. She taught herself melodies, experimenting with notes until entire songs flowed from her fingertips. Her breakthrough came during a family gathering when she shyly asked if she could play something. As her small hands danced across the keys, the room fell silent, captivated by the beauty of her performance. Tears welled up in Alexander's eyes as he realized how far she'd come, from a quiet girl afraid to speak to someone brave enough to share her soul through music. What made these achievements even more remarkable was how the siblings supported each other. Malik cheered loudest at Jalen's games, holding up handmade signs that read "Go Jay." Nia helped Amara memorize lyrics for her recitals, while Amara drew pictures to decorate Malik's science fair projects. They weren't just individuals pursuing their passions. They were a team, lifting each other higher. Alexander watched all of this unfold with pride, knowing he hadn't just given them opportunities. He'd given them a foundation of love and stability. Late at night, after the kids had gone to bed, he often sat in the living room, staring at the framed certificates, trophies, and artwork displayed around the room. This was no longer just a mansion. It was a home filled with laughter, ambition, and dreams. The Hartwell siblings were proving that being unwanted didn't define them. With hard work, encouragement, and belief in themselves, they were rewriting their stories and inspiring everyone around them to do the same. Despite their growing confidence and achievements, life wasn't without its challenges for the Hartwell siblings. As they stepped into the wider world, they encountered obstacles that tested their strength, resilience, and faith in themselves and each other. Malik faced one of his biggest hurdles when he applied for a prestigious summer internship at a tech company. On paper, he was more than qualified. Brilliant ideas, hands-on experience, and glowing recommendations from teachers who admired his work ethic. But during the interview process, Malik sensed something was off. The executives smiled politely but seemed hesitant to engage with him fully. When he didn't get the position, Malik couldn't shake the feeling it had less to do with his skills and more to do with how people saw him. A young black man walking into spaces where few like him had gone before. Frustrated and hurt, Malik confided in Alexander one evening. "Why does it feel like I have to be twice as good just to get half as far?" he asked, his voice trembling. Alexander listened silently, letting Malik vent his anger and disappointment. Then he said, "You're right. It's not fair, but don't let them make you doubt your worth. You're not fighting for them. You're fighting for you." Together, they brainstormed ways to turn this setback into fuel for growth. Malik poured his energy into improving his designs, eventually creating an innovative app that caught the attention of another company, one that recognized his brilliance without hesitation. Nia struggled differently. Her writing gained recognition, but she often battled imposter syndrome, wondering if her stories mattered in a world dominated by voices unlike hers. At a literary conference, she overheard someone dismiss her essay as too niche, implying her experiences weren't universal enough to resonate widely. Heartbroken, Nia considered giving up. But Alexander reminded her why her voice was important. "Your story is powerful because it's yours," he told her. "Not everyone will understand it. And that's okay. The people who need to hear it will." With renewed determination, Nia continued sharing her truths, inspiring readers who saw themselves reflected in her words. Jalen's challenge came on the basketball court. During a high-stakes game, he twisted his ankle badly, sidelining him for weeks. For a boy whose identity was tied to sports, the injury felt devastating. He worried he'd lose his spot on the team or fall behind his peers. Alexander stayed by his side throughout the recovery, reminding him that setbacks were temporary. "You're stronger than this," Alexander said firmly. "Use this time to think about what else drives you besides basketball." Jalen took those words to heart, discovering a passion for coaching younger kids. By the time he returned to the court, he was not only a better player, but also a leader others looked up to. Amara's journey wasn't without its bumps either. Before one of her first big recitals, stage fright hit hard. She froze during rehearsals, convinced she'd embarrass herself in front of everyone. Seeing her distress, Alexander knelt beside her and said softly, "Remember why you love playing. It's not for them, it's for you. Let the music carry you." On the night of the performance, Amara closed her eyes, letting the melody guide her fingers. By the end, the audience erupted in applause, but what mattered most was the smile on her face, proof that she'd conquered her fear. Through every trial, the siblings leaned on each other, finding strength in their bond. They reminded one another that struggles didn't define them, how they responded did. And through it all, Alexander remained their steady anchor, cheering them on and teaching them to see challenges as opportunities to grow. These moments shaped them, not just as individuals, but as a family. Each obstacle became a stepping stone, pushing them closer to their dreams while deepening their connection. Together, they proved that no matter how tough the road got, they could face it head-on, hand in hand. Years flew by, and the Hartwell siblings grew into remarkable young adults who defied every stereotype placed upon them. Their hard work, resilience, and Alexander's unwavering support transformed their lives in ways no one could have predicted. What started as small sparks of potential had ignited into blazing successes that inspired millions. Malik became a trailblazer in the world of renewable energy. The app he created during his teenage years evolved into a groundbreaking startup called Econovatech. It focused on affordable solar solutions for underserved communities, earning him global recognition. Malik traveled the world, speaking at conferences and partnering with organizations to bring clean energy to places that needed it most. Despite his success, he never forgot where he came from. At every event, he shared his story, how a boy once labeled unadoptable was now changing the planet, one innovation at a time. Nia's writing career soared to new heights. Her memoir, Unwanted No More, became a bestseller, resonating deeply with readers across generations. Through her eloquent prose, she painted vivid pictures of pain, hope, and triumph, offering a voice to those who felt unseen. Schools invited her to speak about the importance of representation in literature, while social media buzzed with quotes from her book. Nia used her platform to mentor aspiring writers, especially young Black authors striving to tell their own stories. "Your words matter," she often said. "Don't let anyone silence you." Jalen's basketball journey led him to college on a full scholarship, where he not only excelled on the court, but also became a vocal advocate for racial equality. After graduating, he pursued a professional career overseas, using his visibility to highlight issues affecting marginalized youth. Off the court, Jalen founded a nonprofit called Courts for Change, which provided free sports programs and mentorship to kids in low-income neighborhoods. His message was clear: sports weren't just about winning. They were about building character, teamwork, and opportunity. Amara's music touched hearts worldwide. Her debut album, Melodies of Hope, blended classical piano with soulful rhythms, creating a sound uniquely hers. Critics praised her ability to convey raw emotion through her compositions, calling her a prodigy. But Amara cared more about the impact of her music than accolades. She launched a program called Keys to Healing, offering free music therapy sessions to children in foster care. Sitting beside these kids at the piano, she saw herself in their eyes and reminded them that they, too, could create beauty out of hardship. Together, the Hartwell siblings shattered stereotypes and redefined what it meant to be unwanted. They proved that adversity wasn't a barrier, it was a catalyst. Their collective achievements reached far beyond personal milestones. They sparked conversations, challenged biases, and opened doors for others like them. Alexander watched with pride as his children transformed into leaders, innovators, and changemakers. He realized that adopting them hadn't just changed their lives, it had saved his. The mansion that once echoed with emptiness now vibrated with laughter, purpose, and love. Every award ceremony, book signing, or concert felt like a celebration of not just their individual talents, but of the unbreakable bond they shared. The Hartwell name became synonymous with resilience and hope. Countless families followed Alexander's example, opening their homes to children in need. The siblings' stories spread through news outlets, documentaries, and social media, breaking millions of hearts, not with sadness, but with inspiration. Together, they showed the world what was possible when someone believed in you, even when the odds seemed impossible. The Hartwell siblings didn't stop at personal success. They were determined to pay it forward. Having experienced the struggles of being overlooked and undervalued, they vowed to create opportunities for others who faced similar challenges. Inspired by Alexander's generosity and guided by their own journeys, they founded the Hartwell Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting underserved communities. Malik took the lead in launching STEM programs for underprivileged youth. He knew firsthand how access to resources could change lives, so he partnered with schools and community centers to provide hands-on workshops in coding, robotics, and engineering. "I want kids to see that science isn't just for someone else. It's for them," Malik said during the Foundation's first event. Kids as young as 8 eagerly built robots and designed apps, their faces lighting up with excitement. For many, it was the first time they'd been told they were capable of greatness. Nia used her storytelling skills to amplify marginalized voices. Through the foundation, she established writing camps where children learned to express themselves through poetry, essays, and fiction. She also created a publishing platform called Unheard Voices, which printed works by young authors from disadvantaged backgrounds. One participant, a shy 13-year-old named Maya, wrote a poem about growing up in foster care. When it was published, she hugged Nia tightly and whispered, "You made me believe my story matters." That moment encapsulated everything Nia hoped to achieve. Jalen poured his energy into sports initiatives, organizing free clinics in neighborhoods where kids often lacked access to organized athletics. But these weren't just about basketball. They were about teaching life skills like teamwork, perseverance, and leadership. Jalen shared his own struggles openly, telling the kids, "You're going to face tough times, but don't let setbacks define you. Use them to grow stronger." Parents thanked him for giving their children not only a safe space to play, but also role models who looked like them. Amara's contribution came through music therapy programs. Using her love for piano, she introduced children to the healing power of music. Many participants had endured trauma or hardship, finding solace in the melodies they created. Amara worked closely with therapists to design sessions that helped kids process emotions they couldn't put into words. One boy, who rarely spoke due to anxiety, began humming tunes during class and eventually performed a duet with Amara at a local showcase. His proud smile said more than words ever could. Together, the siblings turned the Hartwell Foundation into a beacon of hope. Their combined efforts reached thousands of families, offering tools, mentorship, and encouragement to those who needed it most. The Foundation's motto, "From surviving to thriving," reflected their belief that everyone deserved a chance to shine. Alexander stood back, watching his children work tirelessly to make the world better. He saw pieces of himself in their determination and compassion. They had taken his act of love, a decision made on a rainy night years ago, and multiplied its impact exponentially. What started as 4 unwanted kids finding a home had grown into a movement empowering countless others. The Hartwell story inspired people globally. Families adopted siblings together, businesses funded scholarships for foster youth, and celebrities donated to expand the foundation's reach. The ripple effect of their actions reminded the world that kindness wasn't just an individual choice. It was a force capable of transforming entire communities. And for Alexander, seeing his children lead such meaningful lives confirmed what he'd always believed. True wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the lives you touched along the way. Decades had passed since the day Alexander Hartwell made the decision that would change his life and the lives of 4 children forever. Now in his late 70s, Alexander sat surrounded by laughter and warmth in the same mansion that once echoed with emptiness. The sprawling estate was alive with family. Malik, Nia, Jalen, and Amara were there with their own spouses and children, filling the rooms with chatter, hugs, and playful chaos. The siblings often joked about how different their childhoods had been from what they imagined a normal family looked like. Yet, looking around now, it was clear they'd built something extraordinary together. Malik's teenage son tinkered with gadgets in the garage, just like his dad once did. Nia's daughter flipped through one of her mom's old journals, marveling at the stories inside. Jalen coached his nephews on the basketball court, teaching them the same moves he learned from Alexander. And Amara's youngest child plinked away at the piano, giggling as she tried to mimic her grandmother's melodies. Alexander watched it all unfold with tears in his eyes. He thought back to that rainy night when he stumbled upon the article about foster care. At the time, he hadn't known what adopting these kids would mean. Not just for them, but for him. They had given him purpose, love, and a sense of belonging he never thought possible. In return, he'd given them stability, encouragement, and a foundation to chase their dreams. Together, they had created a legacy far greater than wealth or fame. The world hadn't forgotten the Hartwells either. Their story had transcended headlines, becoming a symbol of resilience, love, and second chances. Documentaries, books, and even a feature film were made about their journey, inspiring millions worldwide. Countless families followed in Alexander's footsteps, opening their homes to children in need. Foster care agencies reported a surge in adoptions, especially for older kids and sibling groups who were often overlooked. The Hartwell Foundation continued to thrive, expanding its reach globally and touching even more lives. One evening, during a quiet moment, Amara approached Alexander with a photo album. Flipping through the pages, they relived memories. The first awkward dinners, Jalen's tantrums over broken toys, Nia reading aloud under the tree, Malik proudly showing off his inventions, and Amara's tiny hands hovering over the piano keys. "Do you remember this?" she asked, pointing to a picture of Alexander sitting cross-legged on the floor, helping Amara build a puzzle. "That was the day I stopped being afraid of you," she admitted softly. Alexander chuckled, pulling her into a hug. "And I think that was the day I stopped being afraid of myself." As the years went on, the Hartwells remained united, not just by blood, but by choice. They reminded the world that family wasn't defined by biology. It was built on love, trust, and shared experiences. Their story proved that no matter where you start, transformation is always possible. It showed that kindness has the power to break cycles of pain and create new legacies of hope. On Alexander's 80th birthday, the entire family gathered around him. Each sibling took turns speaking, sharing how much he meant to them. When it was Malik's turn, he said simply, "You didn't just save us, Alex. You saved yourself too." Those words lingered in the air, summing up everything Alexander had ever hoped for. In the end, the billionaire who adopted 4 unwanted black kids left behind a legacy richer than any fortune. He taught the world that true wealth lies not in what you accumulate, but in the connections you nurture and the lives you touch. And as the Hartwell grandchildren ran through the halls of the mansion, laughing and dreaming of their own futures, it was clear that the ripple effects of Alexander's love would continue for generations to come.